Thank you for having me. First, I would like to acknowledge the territories that I'm calling in from, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I am grateful to be here on their territories. My name is Lorelei Williams. I am from Shkati Nations on my mom's side and Sta'alis on my dad's side, which is in the Stalo territories. I do a lot of work around the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Like you said, my auntie Belinda has been missing since 1978. And my cousin Tanya Holyk was murdered by serial killer Robert Pickton. My other aunt was pushed out of a window in the downtown east side. Thankfully, she survived. My other cousin was taken when she was 16 years old and by a different serial killer, Terry Arnold. And she was taken to the mountains and raped by him. Thankfully, he let her go. Thankfully, she got away. The others didn't. The others were murdered. And she lives with survivor's guilt, my cousin Dorina, today. So I do a lot of work around this issue. There were so many flaws in both my missing aunt's case and my cousin Tanya's case. It's all right there. The proof is right there. Tanya's case, you just have to look at the Wally Opal inquiry report. And I think it's called Forsaken. You could see all the flaws there. I am also on the Missing and Murdered Women's Coalition, where we hold the government accountable for the wrongdoings, which is a lot. And this coalition came together because we were shut out of the Wally Opal inquiry. We are over 25 organizations in BC. And yeah, I used to be the women's coordinator for the Vancouver Aboriginal Community Policing Center, where I worked with families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, women in violent situations, women in the downtown east side. And I tried to build positive relationships between the community and the police, which was really hard considering our history. However, I felt like all the work that I did with the police went out the window when the police arrested a 12-year-old girl with her grandfather at the bank when they were trying to open a bank account. When I was with Braided Warriors at Renfrew Station who locked down there, and they were in solidarity with Wet'suwet'en against the pipelines. I went there to support them. And when I got there, there were 50 police officers around the corner getting ready to arrest them. I ran over and I let them know what was going on, that there was so many officers coming in to arrest them. And in the end, I ended up getting pushed by an officer. This triggered my trauma. You know, just seeing, first of all, I seen my friend being taken down by the police officers. So many of them piled up on her. This was just recently. And then I lost my cousin, and there's video of this. It's so traumatizing to watch the video. And a police officer came at me and he pushed me and I lost it. All I was spitting out was stuff about MMIWG. Later on, I thought about it and I was like, wow, they can have 50 officers to go and arrest those youth who are protecting Mother Earth, who are protecting our Indigenous women and girls, but they can't have 50 officers to search for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. I do a lot of work. My work followed me. I'm not working at the VACPC anymore, but my work has followed me. And so I've been volunteering with them. I'm still a volunteer there, and I still go out and I search for missing women in the downtown east side. Actually, in BC, I went to Hope a few years ago to search for somebody there. And then I've gone to the States and searched for Penny Robertson, who was also found, unfortunately. She was found bound up to a couple of trees by all of her limbs. And even down there, the police and the coroners tried to deem it a suicide. So the family asked for support. They brought me down there, and that was so hard. That was really hard. So with also with Chantel Moore, who is actually a family member. I'm pretty sure you're all aware of Chantel Moore, who was shot by the police officer. She's actually a relative to two of my dancers in Butterflies in Spirit. And that made me think more about wellness checks. Wellness checks are not good for us. One, they might die. That's the worst one. That wellness checks are not good for us because one, they will actually die. Or two, they'll end up in an institution where they are served pills that they can get addicted to. If they have children, the children will be taken away and thrown into the foster care system. Our children are thrown into the foster care system so easily. The foster care system is a different form of the residential schools. Okay. And, you know, we're here to acknowledge those children, to talk about what happened. And I'm grateful for that. I spoke at an event earlier today, early in the morning. And they asked me at the beginning, how are you? And I really thought about that. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm okay. I'm grateful to be here. When the news broke about those kids, it made me realize how lucky I am to be here today, because that could have been my parents. I'm wearing this orange shirt with my parents. They both attended residential school, St. Mary's Residential School in Mission, which is not too far from here. You know, I grew up in an alcoholic home because my mom tried to numb the pain of what happened to her in residential school. My dad, I didn't even know. I had no idea he went to the residential school until after he died. His pain was so bad that he didn't even want to speak about it. And a lot of our people won't speak about this. It's just too hard. I've seen people collapse when they first open up about their experiences in residential school. The first time my mom actually spoke to me about it, I made sure she was going to be okay, because I had seen people collapse in the work that I was doing at VACPC. And I said, Mom, you don't have to tell me, but I would like to know about your experience at residential school. And she looked at me and she's like, okay. But I made sure I told her to. I said, please don't tell me anything if it's going to be too hard. I know it's going to be hard. And my daughter, she was 5 years old, sitting on the ground in front of us, playing with her toys. And my mom said, when she was taken from our reserve, that she counted every single mountaintop. Our reserve is way past Whistler. It's past Mount Currie. She said she counted every single mountaintop from there to the residential school in Mission, because she wanted to follow those mountains back home. And I just burst into tears, looking at my daughter who was 5 when that was the age that my mom was taken. I couldn't imagine being a mother, my child being ripped away from me like that. I couldn't imagine what the child would have gone through, being ripped away from their parents. This was so hard for me to hear that. You know, I grew up knowing that I couldn't turn the lights out because that's when bad things happened. I couldn't turn the lights out wherever my mom was sleeping. We were not allowed to turn the lights out. She would wake up screaming. Even though she drank, if she was passed out, you know, when people are passed out from drinking, it's really hard for them to wake up. My mom, it didn't matter. Sorry, I'm gonna have to have her now. I forgot where I was. Oh, my mom would also always sleep on a couch. She could never sleep on a bed. She even had a couch in her room sometimes, just so she could sleep on it. So when the news broke of the children, I actually went to Kamloops 3 times. And it wasn't until I was in Kamloops that I realized how strong the grief was, that I was in mourning. It actually felt like it was really close to the pain of when I lost my mom, when my mom died. It was really close to the pain of when my dad died, when my brother died. You know, when my mom died, she died because she had liver failure from drinking so much. When she died, I actually blamed the government for killing my mom. I actually talked to a lawyer and I wanted to charge the government for killing my mom, and then later on my dad as well. But after my mom, I actually talked to a lawyer. And you know, this conference, thank you for this conference. And you know, the topics addressing systemic racism. I always say this, all the systems are against us. Canada is racist. White men are getting away with murdering our people all the time, all the time. This is why predators will target Indigenous women and girls, because they know that they can get away with it. Canada was so good at hiding the truth. I speak internationally, and at these events internationally, I always hear the same thing. Canada is perfect. I thought Canada was perfect. Why did they target the children? You know, I've been speaking about the genocide. I've been speaking about this for a while. And around the world, they can't believe that they targeted our children. Some of them actually don't think that we exist up here. They think that Canada is white. I get that all the time. And I'm just gonna go on my cell phone. You know, there's a statement from the coalition, because we're talking about systemic racism, and I'm just gonna read it from my phone because I have it here. You know, we had this national inquiry, and that draft NAP came out recently. I'm sure you all heard about it. This draft NAP is a further failure by the federal government to provide concrete actions which are urgently required to resolve systemic violence, murder, and disappearance against Indigenous women, girls, and 2S LGBTQIA+ people. It is a disappointing display of the federal government using nice language and performative action to sidestep accountability. Notably absent is any clear plan for implementation, actions, or timelines, which are said to follow in a complementary document. No release date for such a document has been provided. Key issues identified within the draft NAP include no government accountability, no plan for implementation, lack of consultation with Indigenous women survivors, families, and Indigenous women organizations, failure to meaningfully, sorry, my dog again, implement Bill S3 pending June 3rd release, performative language, short-term priorities, lack of prevention. Addressing the topic of truth, reconciliation, and justice. Truth, yes, the truth is finally coming out about the genocide against my people. It breaks my heart that it took the finding of the unmarked graves of the children for Canadians and the world to start acknowledging the pain, discrimination, and the injustices experienced by us. You know, I walk down the street now and you can clearly tell I'm Indigenous, and people are looking at me differently now. People look at me like they're sad for me. I've gone to get my hair done or my nails done and people are asking me questions about it now. And I've actually gone out of my way to buy Tamara Starblanket's book called Suffer the Little Children, which is a book that legally proves the genocide against our people. And I've given it to them at the nail salon. I give that book out like candy, actually. If somebody really is interested in learning about the genocide against our people, I will gift it to them. And, you know, my dance group, we were gonna perform there. And as I was walking in, a big white guy with a dog apparently looked at me and pulled out a taser. I didn't see the taser. It was actually my other butterfly who's speaking later on, Jacqueline Hanyus, that saw the taser. And it's just like, why, when you look at me, why would you think to pull out a taser? Like, you know, on IG, when I shared a picture of me with a quote about genocide that CPC took, of course, there's some denial on my picture. There was a guy who said something. And just in my classroom last week, I spoke up about some racism from a white guy. And this white lady jumped in. You know, it's already hard for us to speak about this, to be open. And I feel like I have a strong voice. And even for me in the classroom, it was very scary for me to actually say something. And when I finally did, this other white person jumped in and got defensive. The person that I was addressing, he actually apologized right away. He apologized. It was the other white lady that made the whole situation worse than it had to be. You know, her words were, "He's a nice guy." And I was like, I didn't say he wasn't a nice guy. You know, there's a lot of nice people out there, but he's racist in the classroom. He's being racist. His comments are triggering me. And then I even said to her too, you know, you're taking up a lot of space in the classroom as well. You know, this course is about environment, First Nations women, and power and politics. And these two white people were taking up a lot of space. And I finally said something. You know, her and a lot of people across this country need to learn about what white fragility is, because that really bothered me. After class, it was hard for me to go to sleep later that night, and it really bothered me the next day. And I really had to smudge myself. Ever since that happened, like for a day and a half, I just kept smudging myself to try to take that away. So this is always happening to us. With reconciliation and justice, there isn't any. You know, with the genocide still happening to our people, with the racism, there isn't any at all. And yeah, I was gonna finish off mentioning Tamara's book, but I already mentioned it, so thank you. And sorry for taking up more time, but I figured Norm didn't come and he would let me take his time. So I knew I was gonna have to speak longer. I felt like 10 minutes wasn't enough. And then when I realized Norm wasn't gonna be here, I thought, oh, I'll just take his time. He's my former boss and I don't think he would mind. Thank you.